Welcome to the Sureway English PTE Tips and Tricks lecture. Today's topic is the top 10 mistakes that you need to avoid to get a good score in PTE. A few mistakes, they can cost a lot. Sometimes, even after working hard, putting in your time and effort, when the result comes, you are shocked or surprised. That is because you have done some easily avoidable mistakes, some silly mistakes, as you might call them. So watch this lecture till the end, watch this video till the end to learn what are these mistakes that you must avoid to get a high score in your PTE exam. Let's get started right away. Mistake number 1, not understanding the intent. Now, a lot of you have read from somewhere, from a YouTube video, or from teachers, and I might say who are not very good. You have been taught to listen for some keywords or just try to pick some words, whether while reading or while listening. This is not really correct. You should always listen to understand, and you should always read to understand. Sure, try to pick the keywords, try to identify which words are more important, but always keep your mind focused on the fact that when you are listening or when you are reading a text, you must understand the meaning. What's the theme? What's the person trying to say? You must understand that. Why that is important? Because if the question is not that simple, that you can just match keywords and find the right option. In that case, understanding the meaning, even if you understand it a little bit, that will really help. Secondly, if let's say for some reason you're not able to listen to the whole audio or you're not able to read everything and understand properly, even if you understand a little bit, that will help you make an intelligent guess. So instead of just making a random guess, you will be able to make an intelligent guess if you try to understand what the meaning of the text is or what the meaning of the audio is. So those who have told you that you should just try to pick words, forget that advice. Always try to understand the meaning. That way, you will be on the safer side. So that's the very first mistake that you should avoid, not understanding the intent or not trying to understand the meaning. Mistake number 2, not checking all the options. Now, this is especially true for, let's say, the multiple choice kind of questions. You see the first option and you think, yes, this seems to be correct. You select it and you go to the next option. Now, don't be in a hurry. Don't jump to conclusions. Why? Because you might find, after option 1, when you reach option C or option D, you might find that that was a better option. Sometimes, especially in the listening questions, the speaker might say something in the beginning, and you might think, yes, this corresponds to option number 1. But in the middle of the audio or towards the end, he might say, I didn't mean that. Or, he might change direction. And then you will realize that option B, option C, or one of the other options were the correct. So even if you think option A is the better option, is the best option, always make sure that you check all other options. So while you select an option, also make sure that you have a reason to rule out other options. That way, you will never make a silly mistake. Mistake number 3 that you need to avoid, using the same template everywhere. Now, templates, they are good to have provided you use them intelligently. Now, in questions like describe image, where you will have 6 questions, or retail lecture, or writing essay, where you might have a couple of essays. Some people, they will try to use the same template everywhere. They will always begin their response by saying this image, or for the essay they will have the same structure everywhere. My advice is, if you have to memorize some templates, go with some templates. Then instead of just learning one template, try to learn a few variations. 2 or 3 templates that you can use for essays, 5 or 6 different templates that you can use for your describe image. That way, depending upon the question, whether it's a photo, a graph, and depending upon the type of essay, you should be able to pick the better template and use that. Also, using a different template that will show your diversity, that you can handle different kinds of questions, you can use different kind of language. So don't just depend upon one template for one question type. Instead of that, have 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 templates for each question type. This will need, of course, that you have to put in some more effort, but if you can memorize one template, you can surely memorize 2 or 3 templates. So don't be lazy, be smart, vary your templates, learn to use different templates for different kinds of questions. The next mistake that you need to avoid, not following the structure. Now, this especially applies to questions, uh, for example, describe image, retell lecture, or writing an essay, where you know that if you follow a particular structure, for example, give an introduction, then have a couple of uh, paragraphs with your ideas, and then a conclusion. If you know that if you follow a structure, then you will get a better marks. So a very silly mistake that you can make is not following the structure. So some people, while practicing, they will write their essays in the structure, but in the exam they will panic. They will forget that you need to put an example. They will forget that you need to have a proper conclusion. They will forget that you need to have 2 or 3 paragraphs in the middle. So don't answer randomly, stick to the structure. When you are learning, when you are practicing, do it properly so that you form a habit. And if you form a habit, then you will repeat the same method, the same technique in the exam. Then you will not answer questions randomly. Okay, so always follow the structure. If you have learned a structure in which to give your response for describe image, for example, first line should be the key point, the theme, what the image is about, then a couple of key points, and then a conclusion. So then always stick to that structure and try to follow that structure. So don't confuse yourself, don't answer randomly, okay? Don't give up on the structure. The next mistake that you need to avoid, not knowing how much time to spend. So this is a big problem, right? You will spend a lot of time practicing. Some people, they do hundreds of questions, but if you ask them a day before the exam, how much time are you going to spend on a reorder paragraph, they will not have an answer to that. Okay, if you ask them how are you going to use the 20 minutes for your essay, they will not have an answer to that. So that's a huge mistake, not knowing how much time to spend. So you should know this beforehand, and you should be strategic about time usage. For example, if you know that fill in the blanks, I find them easy, then you can spend just a minute or less than a minute on each fill in the blanks question. But if you similarly find reorder paragraphs difficult, then you know that by spending less time on fill in the blanks, you can now spend 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes on a reorder paragraph question. Similarly, for writing an essay, you know that the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes I can spend them getting some ideas and getting a template. Then the next 10 minutes I'm going to spend on developing my essay, and the last 5 or 6 minutes I'm going to spend on a review. So you should have this strategy very clear in your mind, how much time you're going to spend on each question type, and also uh, how you are going to allocate that time within that question type. For example, how are you going to spend the 10 minutes that you have for writing a summary? How are you going to allocate the 20 minutes to different tasks in writing an essay? So be very clear about that. Make it a goal of your practice sessions that I have to get an understanding of how much time I should spend on these question types. The next mistake that you need to avoid, reading instructions again and again. Now you know that pretty much all the repeat sentences, all the read aloud, describe image, retell lecture, summary, these kind of questions, they will have the same instructions. So when you read the instructions, you are just wasting your time. So read only the instructions that change. So in your essay, the prompt is important, so read it. Similarly, for select missing word in the listening section, in the instructions they tell what the listening topic is about. So that's important. That's where you should read the instructions. But pretty much everywhere else, it's a standard set of instructions. So don't waste your time reading those. Quickly get on to the answering the question. The next mistake that you need to avoid, hesitating too much. So, there are different kinds of hesitation that you will have in the exam. For example, you can hesitate while reading aloud because you're not very clear or confident about the pronunciation. Okay? You can hesitate while describe image because you don't really know how you should begin your describe image question. So hesitating too much, that is a huge mistake that you are making because you not only waste your time, but you also end up giving bad responses. So there are two ways to remove this hesitation. First, of course, have confidence in yourself. On the exam day, just assume that you know everything. If, for example, in read aloud, you find that a word is difficult or you can't pronounce it properly, then instead of just hesitating back and forth, just say anything and keep moving forward. Similarly, make sure that you learn the proper methods, you practice using those proper methods so that you form a habit. Then in your exam, you will know immediately how to attack a question of describe image. You won't have to sit there thinking how you should start. So, hesitating too much, avoid this mistake at all costs. Let's look at mistake number 8 that you need to avoid, thinking too much about the people around you. So, in the exam center, depending upon where you are giving the exam, you might find yourself surrounded by very loud people, people who are creating disturbances of different kinds. Sometimes, if we are not very confident of our skills or for any other reason, one also tends to become conscious. Okay, so if you think about people sitting around you, or you think, what will they think of my speaking, then that's a big mistake that you are making because that will affect how well you are able to respond. Especially this applies to your speaking score. So ignore the people, ignore the noise, focus only on yourself. Don't worry about what the people will think of your speaking score, of your speaking skills. Your concern should only be what the computer will think of your speaking skills. So ignore people, ignore the noise, focus only on yourself. Okay, if you have to, if there's noise around, then you should also raise your voice and speak boldly, speak clearly, always. The next mistake that you need to avoid, giving up midway. Now I don't mean that you will stop the exam midway and get up and leave the exam center. What I mean is that sometimes, for example, for repeat sentence questions where you have 10 or 12 questions, or for answer short question where you have 10 or 12 questions, a lot of people, what they do, till let's say question number 4 or question number 5, they will be full of energy. They will focus exactly on how to give, on each and everything that they should do to give a good response. But by the time they get to the 8th question or the 9th question, their energy goes down. They suddenly, start giving sloppy responses. They turn lazy. So don't do that. Okay? 6 describe image questions. A lot of people, they answer the first 2 or 3 well, and then, they just go down. So don't let that happen to you. Treat every question as if that was the one and only question that you are answering today. Put your 100% energy, full focus into each and every question. Don't be lazy. Alright? If for some reason you think, the last section or the last question, you haven't been able to answer it properly, then don't just assume that, yeah, my whole exam will go like this. Okay? Keep get over it and just focus yourself on the next question. Alright? So don't let your energy go down. Don't be lazy. Always put your 100% focus into each and every question. Treat it like that was the one and only question that you're going to answer today. Okay, the Last mistake, and again a very common mistake that pretty much like 80 or 90% of the students make: overloading yourself the day before exam. So tomorrow you've got your exam in the morning or the afternoon, and you're just sitting again on YouTube, trying to catch some more tips and tricks, trying to watch, learn new methods, or get some magic advice from somewhere. Don't do that. Just do a small review, relax, and have faith in your skills, in your preparation. Don't burden yourself the day before exam, because that can confuse you at the last moment. If, for example, you have been practicing method A, but then on the last day you come across a YouTube video which gives you a different advice, then you will just end up confusing yourself. All right. And just a day before exam, you will not be able to go deep into each and every question. If you do that, you will just tire yourself. So don't try to do that either. Just do a small review. If you have been taking notes while preparing, just go through those notes. If there are some question types which you think are more difficult for you, then just have a look at them again. What were the methods that you are going to follow? What's the strategy that you're going to follow? So just do a small review like this. And other than that, just relax. Okay, you have worked hard, you have prepared yourself. So relax and have faith, and you will do very well in the exam. Okay, so those were the top 10 mistakes. I really hope that you pay attention to these things, because these small things, they make a huge difference. So prepare, spend your time, work hard, but also make sure that you don't do any of these silly mistakes. All the best. I'll see you in the next lecture. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and press the save button. That way you will not miss the next lecture. If you need more help, more resources, then check the video description and go to sureway english.com. All the best.